Hello, my name is Melissa Emery, and this is my video lesson plan for Mariah. I will be teaching Mariah tennis. The purpose of my lesson is to help Mariah gain a greater understanding of how tennis works and the basic fundamentals that accompany it. I chose to do this lesson with Mariah, not only because of how much I love tennis, but because of how much I felt that this would be within her zone of proximal development. Through pre-assessment, she said how much she enjoys playing sports, and she said that volleyball is her main sport. Because she already has a love for sports, our lesson should give her the right level of facilitating anxiety in order for her to be successful. I want her to develop self-regulation throughout this lesson. According to Piaget's stages of development, Mariah is at stage 4, the formal operational stage. She should be able to have a logical thought and reasoning, which will be perfect for learning the game of tennis. Learning tennis will help her with her psychomotor domain. The physical climate of our lesson will be located at a tennis court at the park. The physical arrangement will be an open space and a high fence for Mariah to learn how to hit the ball, as well as a net that is across the court. I first plan to introduce myself to Mariah, and ask her some questions to get to know her. I want her to feel comfortable with me and help lower her state anxiety that she might be feeling at the beginning of our lesson, which could potentially turn into debilitating anxiety, which in turn would keep her from enjoying herself and being able to comprehend exactly what is going on. I really want her to feel comfortable with me and develop self-efficacy. I feel that by her responses, I will gain a greater understanding for exactly where her level of anxiety is at. During our conversation, I want to ask her questions so that I can know what her schema is. I want to ask her about her idea of tennis and how it works. I'll ask her questions like, why do you enjoy playing sports? Or how do you think learning how to play tennis could help you in other sports, particularly volleyball? Why is it important to learn how to play new sports that we aren't as familiar with? I want her to know that even though she is learning something new, she can still have self-esteem. At this time in her life, she is at Erik Erikson's stage of identity versus role confusion. I also want her to know that this situation can be applied to anything in life, that it is good to try new things and be confident in herself. She can do whatever it is that she sets her mind to. I hope that this conversation with Mariah will influence her affective domain and inspire her to be the best that she can be. I hope that this will improve her self-concept. I imagine that because of Mariah's ability to be outgoing, her individual physical state will be filled with excitement to get started and to learn what she can. The first thing we will do is look at a tennis ball and its defining features, that it bounces high, it's green, and that it's small. We will discuss how some correlational features of the ball is that it can be brand new or used, and that you typically buy tennis balls in packs of 3. I will show her that a negative instance of a tennis ball could be a softball. I hope by doing this it will create situational interest. We will also look at a tennis racket and talk about its defining features. We will discuss how tight the strings are and that it is made that to hit the ball. I will then show her how to hold the racket. I want her to create a visualization in her mind. I want to clear up any misconceptions that she may have on holding a tennis racket. I want her to know that when we hold the racket at the bottom of the handle, This is the prototype. To help her along the way, I will stand in close proximity, although I don't want her to gain learn helplessness. We will then talk about what a forehand motion is. I will show her that when doing a forehand motion, you swing it low to high. I will then cue her to show me a forehand motion with her tennis racket. I will give her direct instruction so Mariah knows exactly what she needs to be able to do in order to hit the tennis ball. After we practice our forehand stroke, we'll then apply it with hitting the tennis balls. I will explain to her that just like anything else, if you want to become a mastery learner, then you're going to have to practice this over and over again. We will hit tennis balls in a forehand motion until she feels comfortable with the new skill that we have learned. I want her to be assimilated into what it feels like to hit the tennis ball correctly. I will continue to reinforce the proper way to hit the tennis ball in a forehand motion. After we have practiced hitting a forehand, I want to make sure that this exercise moves from her working memory to her long-term memory, so we will switch activities. I will then explain the rules of how to play a singles match and what all the lines on the court mean. I will talk about each line. We will walk towards it and stand on it. The nerve cells in her body will make a positive transfer to her occipital lobe in her brain that will allow her to know what is going on. We will discuss the differences in the single lines and the double lines. I will show her where you stand in singles when you're serving and what box the ball needs to go into. After I tell her what each line on the court means, I will ask her to tell me what each line on the court means, which will awaken her sensory register. This will give her a defining characteristic of the game and help affect her cognitive domain. I don't want her to experience failure to retrieve, which could turn into learn helplessness, but I will give her cueing as needed. I will then teach her how to keep score. I will explain the difference between a game and a set and how these are both defining characteristics of the game of tennis. After I explain the rules of the game, I will then proceed to teach her a backhand motion. Again, we will practice with the racket first before we use the tennis balls. This will help create stimuli. We will then practice hitting tennis balls with a backhand motion. I will teach her that when you are in an actual game of tennis, you have to accommodate for what direction the ball is coming towards you, which means that you will have to decide whether to use a forehand motion or a backhand motion. We will practice hitting both forehand and backhand swings, which will activate her motor cortex. Throughout this process, it will give her the opportunity to use discovery learning. At the end of our lesson, I'm going to invite Mariah to continue to practice the skills that we have learned with her brothers who also play tennis. As we learn these different skills throughout the lesson, she might create an imaginary audience of her brothers actually being there with us, which could give her motivation as we're playing. At this point in the lesson, I want to provide Mariah with a moral dilemma. I'm going to assume that there will be other players playing in the court next to us. We will pick up the balls, but I will ask her how many balls we should take and which balls we should take with us. After presenting this dilemma, I will be looking for hot cognition issues. I want her to know that it is important to be honest in the little things and to be a good sportsman to the other people around her. Her answers will give me an idea of where she is at in Kohlberg's stages of moral development. Because of her age and the good morals she has already required, I predict that she will be at stage 4. I'm super excited to be teaching Mariah and help her see that there are good things that come from learning a new sport or even a new skill. I want her to see that she can feel comfortable in her body, be confident in herself, and that she can do anything that she sets her mind to. Thanks for listening.